Hello, everyone, and welcome to MAC 2311, better known as Calculus 1. My name is Ethan Williams, and in this video, I will be going through pretty much the introduction to the course. I'll talk about the syllabus and pacing and everything else that's really going on in Canvas. And I will say that you do have an introduction quiz, which will really, you'll be able to do it all based on this video, what I say in it. It's just going to hit on the highlights. But in this video, and especially when I go through the syllabus and pacing, it's really going to outline in the structure of the course, because I probably do my courses a little bit differently than your other math professors have. And I want you to understand that, especially if you think it might be a course structure that you're not going to be a fan of, so you can maybe look into a different teacher, or maybe, and hopefully you'll stick around and enjoy the course. All right, but this is the homepage. So when you open up Canvas, you should see exactly this. I'm in my student view, which means everything that I see, you should see, up to maybe some color customization. And I want to talk about pretty much what's in this course information. I'll start with the syllabus and pacing. So I'll go ahead and click on this, and we'll look at the syllabus first. You can either download it or look at it inside the browser. So I'm going to go ahead and just look at it inside the browser, because I already have it. Of course, I made it. But I want to go through this and really hit on the main points here. All right. So this is, like we said, MAC 2311. It's called Calculus with Analytic Geometry 1. All this really means is we're going to draw pictures. When we do word problems, pretty much. It's not just formulas. All right, so the course meetings, you're probably very aware: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 8 a.m. to 9:35 a.m. And in the syllabus, I went ahead and attached the Zoom link if you want to access that. There's also the meeting ID and password, which you can access it like this. But I'll also show you that if you want to get onto the Zoom link, you don't have to memorize this or keep this documented. You can just click on the Zoom tab in Canvas, which we'll get to after this. All right. Now, my information, my name is Ethan Williams, like I mentioned. Office location, just Zoom, because this is online. Everything's online for this summer, so it's all on Zoom. Because of that, I won't be in my office, and my phone number is not available. If I gave it to you and you called it, I would never answer it because I won't be in my office. So the best way to contact me outside of class would be email, or you can do Canvas messaging as well. For those of you that have had me in the past, you may notice the email's a little bit different, and that's because TCC decided to switch it for everyone. So just keep that in mind. If you have an old email of mine saved, try to go to this new one, because I may not be getting all the old emails to the other email address. All right, office hours also on Zoom. There's a different Zoom link, so I wanted to go ahead and make sure that when you look here, even though everything's on Zoom, the course meeting and the office hours, my office hours link is different, or the meeting ID and password are both different. Now, for my office hours themselves, I have office hours Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday from 7 to 8 a.m. And then also Tuesday and Wednesday from 1:15 to 2:15 p.m. All right, so as far as the required text, you do need at least an access code to WebAssign for the course. Now, if you try to access any assignment through Canvas, which is how you should go through and do any assignment, that's really the only way you've got. If you haven't had an access code, then it's going to ask you to sign up for one. Now, at this point, the course isn't available until May 6th. So when I try to go in, it's going to say the course is not available. But after May 6th, or starting on May 6th, when you click on a link, it'll bring it up. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is that access codes, if you buy the book brand new, so Calculus Early Transcendentals by Stewart, 8th edition, the Early Transcendentals is an important thing. There's actually one of these exactly the same without Early Transcendentals, so make sure you get that one. If you buy it brand new, it'll come with an access code. And there's a couple things that goes on, but if you buy the full book, then the access code will give you lifetime. If you buy a smaller book, so there's also versions of this book that only do single variable calculus, which is basically what we're doing, Calculus 1, then it probably will only come with a 1 semester access code. Now, these books new are very, very expensive. It's a good resource to have. So if you are like an engineering, math, physics major, maybe even some other things like biology, chemistry, I'm not really too sure on other ones, computer science, you might like having a calculus book, but the cheapest option is just going to be buying that access code. You get the electronic book with the access code anyway. The only unfortunate thing is if you like hard copies of books, you would not have that. You'd have to be online to look at your copy of the book. Right, but the point here is that if you buy a book and you want the access code, make sure you're buying it new. If you don't care about the physical book, you can just get the access code, which will be the cheapest version. And there's 2 types of access codes, but I'll talk about that more when I can actually go through and show you on May 6th. So can't really talk about it right now. The prereqs, basically, if you pass pre-calculus and trigonometry, MAC 1140 or MAC 1114, or there's a combined class that TCC doesn't offer anymore, but some courses or places will, MAC 1147. If you've gotten at least a C in those, then you have met the prereqs. Now, I'm not going to go through all the details here, so bear with me as I skip through some stuff. The technical skills, you just need to really know how to use your email and Canvas. Course description, all these words aren't really going to mean anything right now if you haven't taken a calculus course, so I'm not going to talk through them. Communicating with me. The main way of communication, I would say completely outside of office hours and class time is by email. But the best way to communicate with me is either during our class time or office hours on Zoom. Some students like to send me a message through Canvas, which is fine, but I always respond through email because I have some students message me through email, some message me through Canvas, but it all comes to my email. So when I respond to you, I will always respond in email. And I'll always try to respond to email pretty quickly, within 24 hours, but usually I try to do definitely the same day. Just keep in mind, if you email me over the weekend, I might not answer until Monday. I just realized that it'd probably help a lot if I made this a little bit bigger. So let me go ahead and zoom in. All right. So just a normal syllabus disclaimer. If I have to change stuff throughout the semester, well, I have to. The main thing is I will try not to ever switch the dates of the test or the way the grading is as far as how your final grade's calculated. There would only be some extreme example why that would change. For the test, you do have to use Honor Lock. I know it's not everyone's favorite, but it's pretty much the main proctoring service TCC has to offer. I do have quite a few words to say about Honor Lock. Ultimately, the first thing is you must have a webcam and it has to be enabled to use Honor Lock. You must have it on Google Chrome because it's only an extension for Google Chrome. So you need Google Chrome and you need the extension downloaded and you need a webcam. That's pretty much what you need to use Honor Lock. You also need a photo ID just to verify that you are there. It'll ask you for a photo ID if you've never used Honor Lock. Now, don't worry, I'm the only one that sees it besides a potential proctor through Honor Lock in case you are doing stuff you're not supposed to. But as long as you are not doing anything weird during taking the test, you'll be fine. Now, I have heard students complain about Honor Lock for many, many reasons. But the main thing is they get flagged because they're not staring straight at the webcam or straight at the screen. When you're doing math, especially calculus, you're going to be looking down a lot to do your work. I know that's going to happen. And if they were to flag you just because you're looking down at your desk because you're writing down work to try to work through a problem, just, if someone pops in, just say, I'm just doing my work, and they should leave you alone. But I write it in the notes that that's expected. So that they shouldn't bother you for that reason. if you've never gotten on HonorLock before, I will have a video. I actually already have it made on how to get on HonorLock. And it's usually pretty easy. The one thing is you might have some security settings that do not allow HonorLock or will not allow your webcam to be accessed. So if that comes up, there is an HonorLock helpline, customer service that you can contact. And that's actually right here. When you enter an exam, there will be a bottom right hand of your screen. There will be a little bubble to talk to someone in case you have trouble. But also, if you can call this number if you have trouble and you can't get a hold of anyone. But the one time I actually messed with it on purpose, pretending to have technical support, and I was able to reach through to the person pretty quickly just from that little bubble, chat bubble on the bottom. But if you watch the video, I believe I will talk about that in the video. All right, now the way the grade is made up. For an expedited semester like this, 10 weeks, especially to do a 5-credit course, that's a lot of work in a very small amount of time. I've done quizzes over the summer semesters in the past, and I always feel like they don't add much value because you're always doing so much work already that just adding a quiz on the weeks where you don't have a test doesn't really do anything. So really the only thing that's going to be in this course as far as grades are homework and tests. There are practice tests which are ungraded, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. But for the homework, it's worth 25% of your grade, and it will be due on Fridays. And then the test, you have 5 of them. Normal Calculus 1 classes have 4 tests and a final. Basically, I don't have a final. I don't think in a shortened semester that it's a good idea. And we don't have a designated final exam week. We just have a day. There's no way I think anyone could adequately get prepared for a final exam in one day. So instead of having a cumulative final, you'll just have a normal test 5. But all the tests are worth 15%. And then these practice tests will always be due the day before a test is due. Now, I try to make the schedule as fluid as possible, meaning I want really homework to be due every Friday and all the tests to be due on Sunday. But the semester ends in the middle of a week on a Wednesday, so your last test is on Wednesday. And also Sunday that we would have a test would be July 4th. So on that one, we have the test due July 3rd. All right, but outside of that, that structure is pretty much the same. The final week is really the only week where there's a little blip. All right, the grading scale, I have the grading scale, just the normal grading scale here. I have it rounded already built in. So if you tell me at the end of the semester you have a 79.2 and you should get a B because it's only 0.3 off, remember that you're actually 0.8 off. The 79.5 is already rounded down from 80 for a B. So keep in mind that these are already rounded, and you should not have an expectation that just because you're close to this 0.5 means that you should get a rounded grade up. Just keep that in mind. Homework, everything you do, the homework, the tests, and the practice tests are through WebAssign. Now, if you're not familiar with WebAssign, you may be familiar with other online products. If you've gone through TCC, you're probably familiar with using Lumen. I would put WebAssign a step up from Lumen on the fact that, yeah, you do have to pay for it, but it's a little bit better of a service, in my opinion. But it's built the same way, same idea. It's online homework. You can do a problem so many times. After so many times, if you get it wrong, it'll give you a new attempt at a completely different problem, and you can just keep going until you get it right. Now, I mentioned quite a bit at the beginning about the access code, so I'm not going to talk about it here, but I did describe slightly more. You do have 2 options for access codes, a single term, and if you're only taking Calculus 1, a single term access code is plenty good. Now, if you are in a major where you're going to take at least Calculus 1 and 2, if not all 3, then a multi-term access code is the cheapest option going forward. Pretty much every school, so if you transfer school for Calculus 1, 2, and 3, they use WebAssign, and that access code will work for Calculus 1, 2, and 3 for any semester, for any campus, any school. All right, unit test. For unit tests, we have 5 of them. They're on the due dates described above. And tests are similar to homework and the practice tests in the sense that you will be doing them on website, but they're timed and you have to submit your work. So for homework and for practice tests, we're not going to be submitting work. That would be a lot of work just for you to submit it to me, and then I'd have to print all of them out all the time, grade it, and then return it. So only test, you will have to submit your work. But this is very important aspect of calculus, is that problems get a lot longer, and submitting your work is a very big deal because you can just figure out the right answer to problems by Googling them or putting them in a special calculator. But that's not really the point of calculus. It's to develop ways to understand how to approach problems in a more general way. And showing your work is a big part of that. So try to submit your work as quickly as possible when you're done with an exam. I'll show you how that's done in a future video specifically about tests, but you should try to submit within 45 minutes of finishing the exam. And most people don't have a problem with that. Usually most people can submit it within like 15 minutes because all you have to do is, after you're done with the test and grade it, is take a picture and upload it to Canvas. But just bear in mind, if you haven't done that, I will have a video about tests specifically that you'll be able to watch and see how to go through and do that. All right. If you miss a test and notify me immediately, it may be possible to extend the deadline if you have a documented excuse. An excuse of, I forgot it was this weekend, I'm on vacation, and I didn't get to do it, something like that. Obviously, that's not a valid excuse. And because there's not a final exam, you really can't afford to miss an entire test. Since there's no final, there's no reason that it makes sense to drop or replace your lowest test grade. So you do need to make sure that you're doing all the tests, you're doing all of them on time. If you look at the schedule right now and you think, especially for that 4th of July weekend, you're not going to be around, or at least online, well, then you need to either reach out to me very quickly, or at least give me a couple weeks notice that something's going to happen and we can arrange what's best. But like I said, since there is no cumulative final, no test grade will be replaced by the last test. You have to do all the tests, all your test grades count. Final exam. Well, there isn't a final exam like I was mentioning above. I don't like cumulative final exams in shortened summer semesters because you don't have a final exam week. You don't have time to actually prepare for one. So you will not have one. One thing I always like to mention, especially about calculus, is it's going to be cumulative pretty much anyway. So whatever we're doing on that last test, on test 5, it's going to take stuff from test 1 through 4 anyway. It's pretty much like a cumulative test every time you take one. But the problems themselves will only be from test 5 sections. Practice tests are not graded. And normally in a calculus class, I would not offer extra credit based on doing practice tests, but they're going to be so important and the semester's so fast that I wanted to offer a little bit to make sure, you try to go ahead and do those practice tests because they will help you a lot to get ready for the real tests. They're set up for being like homework assignments, meaning that you can work on the problems as many times as you need to until you get it right. And if you get at least a 90% on a practice test, once again, you can work on problems until you get them right, which means in theory, you can get 100 on every single practice test. Well, if you get at least a 90 on a practice test, you will receive a 3% bonus on that test grade. And each is due the day before the test is due. So everything's due at midnight. Whenever the test is due at midnight, the midnight before is when the practice test will be due. Now, as far as extra credit goes, that is your extra credit. The only extra credit is from the practice tests. I do like to mention that if you get that bonus 3% on every single test, so all 5 tests, it actually adds up to 2.25% to your overall grade at the end of the semester, which is quite a bit of extra credit in complete honesty. especially at this level. You're starting to get to upper level classes, and extra credit, especially in math, is really never offered. I don't think I ever once had extra credit in all of my years of college, but especially with this type of semester and being quicker, I feel like it's all right. And here's just a little comment about what an excused absence is, what it isn't. You can read that on your own time, but usually it's pretty straightforward. All right, these are just some institutional policies that is campus-wide, basically what the honor code means. It's sort of dependent on each class. Every time you take a test, you'll be under the honor code and it will be described for you before you start the test, basically saying, I'm not going to be cheating. I'm going to be using myself and my own calculator and just my pen and paper and nothing else. And that next bullet point really built on that. All right. This is probably the biggest thing about my class that you need to take, is that the course structure is probably not what you're used to. Especially, we've been doing Zoom for over a year now. I know a lot of professors like to try to make it as in-person based as possible, meaning they come to class, lecture, Zoom time, they give you a lecture, maybe they ask you to do some questions throughout, although in math that could probably be pretty challenging, and you're basically watching them lecture on a computer the whole time. Well, the thing is, I can easily make the lectures on my own, but it's very hard for me to know how you are taking in the lecture. Whether you're in class, because there's so many students, you might not want to speak up, or just in general. So the way my classes work is pretty straightforward, and I'll show you how it's structured when we get to Canvas as well. But what's going to happen is that all the lectures are on Canvas. In every section, I have a little thing called section blank content. And in there's going to be some blank notes that you could print out if you want to follow along my lecture. There's the filled out notes, which are the notes after I'm done going through the lecture, and the video of me actually going through the lecture. Now, what I typically recommend is that you watch these lectures in short spurts, maybe like 20 minutes at a time, 10 to 20 minutes at a time, and then take a break. Maybe after that time, you try to do some of the web assign, you try to do some of the homework, or maybe literally after every question, you look at web assign and see, oh, this was like this one he did in the lecture. I'm going to try to do this one now. The one thing I would recommend is not trying to watch the entire lecture, because some of them are very long. The calculus is very in-depth compared to your other math classes. So do not do them all at once, but the lectures are there for you. The main point is that when you come to class, and it's going to be up to you if you come to class, but when you come to class, that's the time to ask me questions related to your homework grades. Homework questions are pretty much going to be the main thing you should ask about. Now, I have had students in the past come to regular class time and start asking me about their grade. Do keep in mind that that should be personal and private. There is a private messaging feature in Zoom, and some days you might be the only person that even comes to class, because for whatever reason, whatever we're doing that day, everyone feels comfortable with. Well, you can ask me grades in there, but mainly just try to use class time for asking me homework questions. Maybe after you took a test, you have a question about the test afterwards or something. I'll be happy to go over it. You could also just ask the general questions about the class. I do send announcements usually a couple times a week, just reminding you what's due this week, if there's a test this week, and hopefully just trying to encourage you to stick with it and remember that you can ask me questions. But we are in class for over 6 hours a week. And that's a lot of time for you to be able to ask me questions. You can watch the lectures as you like. I try to make every section be limited to around 60 minutes of lectures, but some are just too long. However, overall, the entire semester, if I made you come to class for lecture, you would have 60 hours. I think it's actually 62 hours of sitting on Zoom getting a lecture from me. But the way I have it really planned out is you'll have about 35 hours of lectures that are already going to be on Canvas for you, ready to go as you go through the course. So I pretty much, with those lectures, cut the time you have to actually watch a lecture in half. My recommendation is, when I get to the pacing schedule, watch the lecture for that day on that day. If you need to force yourself, do it during class time. And then you can literally just come to Zoom, watch the lecture on your own time. If you have a question, you can ask me while you're sitting in Zoom. You don't have to come to Zoom and be asking questions. It's just a time that's ideal for asking questions. But the point I really want to try to make here is that I don't do this because I don't want to lecture you. I do this because I want to help you the best way I can and optimize the time we have together. And I have found that really this has been the best way for my students, and I hope it is for you as well. So pretty much the main difference between the live hours, your class time, and the office hours is office hours will be one-on-one. I will have a waiting room, which means, you know, if no one's actually in the room with me, then I'll invite you in right away. If someone's in, I will limit office hours to be 30 minutes per interaction, which means if you are waiting, you might have to wait up to 30 minutes behind someone. But the point of office hours is that you can make sure you get private time if that's really what you want, one-on-one time with me. The big difference is that when I have an office hour, it's for all my classes at once. When I'm in a specific class time like yours, it's only for your class. So you have way less students trying to take up my time in your class time compared to office hours. So just something to keep in mind. Try to make use of class time is the number one thing I want to say. All right, now the tips for success, pretty much watching this video. I know that it's kind of long and I still got quite a ways to go, but this is exactly really what we would do the first day for about an hour in class. So just bear that in mind. The other things I'll show you right after the syllabus, but adhering to the pacing schedule is going to be a very important thing. I pretty much have daily what you should be doing. If you're pretty much keeping up with the class, because the homework is always due on Fridays for the entire week, but if you wait until Friday to do all the homework, especially in a calculus class, I'm going to be honest with you, you're not going to be able to keep up unless if you just have some brilliant mathematical mind. And that's just me being honest with you. There's no way I could have done it. And realistically, some of you may be fine with that, but most of you really need to do it a little bit every day. Okay. I already talked about watching the lecture videos in short spurts and not trying to do the entire thing at once. Some strategy that some students like, I described before, but watch one question, then locate the similar question in the homework and try to do it. And if you can get it right, then clearly you do get it. If you don't get it, maybe you watch the video again, or you just watch the next problem done, and giving you a different perspective can help. But the biggest thing is ask for help if you need it. The lecture videos are exactly what they are. They're lecture videos. Since they're pre-recorded, I don't have an audience of people asking questions. I don't answer those questions. So if you have your own questions, you should ask me about them. Right. Because of the way I really do the class, attendance as far as coming to Zoom every day is not mandatory. It's up to you whether you want to come. Right. I highly advise you, especially if you have a question, to come. It can be one question that would take 2 minutes, and you could just come at the beginning, ask it, get it answered, and then leave. You're not going to hurt my feelings if you only come for your questions and you don't stay for everyone else's questions or the entire time. Right? Do what works best for you, what optimizes your time. The way I will be taking attendance as far as financial aid and everything goes is if you are keeping up with the assignments and the tests in the class, I know you are participating and doing what you're supposed to be doing. All right, withdrawals. I don't withdraw students, which means that if you do fall behind, you have to withdraw yourself. There is a last day to drop this class, which is May 13th, and you can receive a refund. So like I mentioned at the beginning, if you don't think you're going to like this structure, maybe you want to find a different teacher that's going to make you come to class and watch their lecture on Zoom for 6 hours a week. And that's fine. That won't hurt my feelings either. You should do what's best for you. If you do stick past May 13th, but you end up falling behind and you do need to withdraw, you need to do that by June 29th. I'll bring up a reminder when that gets a lot closer. Help outside of class. There's a lot of things. Campus is opening back up gradually, which means some of these might not be open exactly like the way they used to be. The number one thing is attending the Zoom office hours. Learning Commons, as far as I've been told, they will be open over the summer, just like they were in the spring. So you can go to the Learning Commons. If you don't feel comfortable going with in person, or you don't live in Tallahassee and you want to go, you can meet with a Learning Commons assistant virtually. And I'll show you a link to that in Canvas that I have. Something you can do is form study groups with the people in your class. You can read the textbook. Now, oftentimes this is not a enjoyable thing to do. It's hard to read math. That's why I make these lecture videos for you. I really just take examples that I think are going to explain the section the best, explain the background material, and then do the examples. But there are videos paired with the homework problems specifically. So if you get stuck on a specific homework problem after watching the video, you can watch the video that's on there. And then the STEM Center, I don't know if that's open during the summer, but I didn't want to take it off until I got clarification. So just keep in mind that not be there. All right. Accessibility, the main thing I just like to say here is that if you get extra time on your test, if you're supposed to get extra time, you need to make sure you tell me right away. That's really the main accommodation that there is for online classes, because there's not really a note taker type of situation. But if you get extra time, I need to know, and I need to know way before the first test. Okay, the first test, yeah, it's only 2 weeks after the class starts, but you need to tell me before that. Okay, pretty much all this stuff at the end here is just some FYIs if you want to read it, privacy statements, accessibility within Canvas, college equity statement, and then the very last thing, I just have the important dates, that not including the test dates, but just the important dates in general. So class starts May 6th, last day is July 20th, last day to drop with a refund, May 13th, we talked about it above. Last day to withdraw without a refund is June 29th, and the grades will be available on workday no later than July 27th. Now for holidays, we have 2 holidays that are actually holidays, which are Memorial Day on May 31st and Independence Day on July 5th. June 16th is when May Express finals are, and the school decides not to have class for us on that day. So I think it's on a Wednesday in a week, but it just seems like it's going to be random, but you won't have class this day. Unfortunately, I wish it was a Thursday so that we could just have the Thursday off and get a long weekend, but I think this is a Wednesday, so we don't get that. All right, so that was the syllabus. The pacing, I won't go into nearly as much detail. I just want to talk about it. I didn't really actually want to download that. Let me just open it up. It's just a short Excel file that really outlines the pacing. I call this week 0, the week of May 3rd, because technically we're starting on Thursday, but there's not going to be anything to do. I'm not going to make you do something for the immediate Friday for homework or anything like that. So for the first week, pretty much doing the introduction quiz. If you watch this video, you do it, you should be fine. You can do the introduction quiz 3 times, and they're pretty much all true and false questions. So if you get anything less than 100 after the first time, you can just get 100 after you take it the second time. The other thing is you should really try to get that WebAssign access code immediately. Once we start next week, it's just such a fast-paced class, you cannot fall behind. I will 100% guarantee if you're not doing the homework and after the first week you haven't done any of this, let alone all of it, then you're just going to have a really hard time catching back up the entire semester. So make sure you try to get this WebAssign code done by Sunday night, May 9th. So when the next week starts May 10th. You can start doing 2.2 on Monday, 2.3 on Tuesday. These are how I recommend going through the course on a day-by-day schedule. 2.2 on Monday. When I say 2.2, I don't only mean just watch the lecture, but also try to do the homework that goes along with it. So don't watch all the 4 lectures without doing any homework at all, and then try to do all the homework at the end of the week. You're not going to remember probably any of this, but definitely not what's at the beginning of the week if you don't try to do your own problems as you go. So work the homework alongside doing the lecture. Like I said, the homework's due on Fridays. So throughout the lecture, throughout the week, we will have homework due. And there's just a couple things I wanted to mention here. On test week, so like test 1 is due this week, you do have 4 sections, but 2.7 and 2.8 are pretty much a section combined as one. And what I tried my best to do, because there is so much material that I can't just skip stuff. I'm not allowed to just do what I want. I have to do the things that we're supposed to learn in Calculus 1. But I try to make sure that the test weeks are a little lighter as far as time amount spent on homework and lecture goes compared to non-test weeks. So whenever you're looking at the schedule here, you'll probably notice that pretty much every week we have 3, sometimes 4. Just one week it's 2. But the main thing is that I've pretty much organized it so every single week that you have a test, that Thursday, you should be able to commit almost entirely to start studying for the test on Sunday. Now you can do tests before Sunday. You can do tests starting on the Monday of the week. I have them available all week. But unless if you're way ahead, you don't want to start doing a test that you haven't done all the material for. Just a couple extra things that I have down here. I don't have the practice tests on here as far as their due dates because they're always just due 1 day before the test. So just look at the day the test is due, and it's due 1 day before. And I just mentioned a reminder of how the practice tests work. There's a bonus, and there's something on Canvas about how the bonus works in case you don't memorize it. For the last week, since the week ends and class really ends on a Wednesday, the last day of class is actually Tuesday, this July 20th. So that's when the last week of homework is due. Now you do have 2 sections to do in the last week, but as I mentioned a couple times here, you should really try to do the things I recommend. So this week, week 7, I say try to start 5.1. I'm not doing that because I want you to do more. Basically, I didn't think it would be a good idea to add in 5.1 in this week because it would be a lot to take in at once. But you can definitely start 5.1. Similar to this week 10 here, you can definitely start 6.4 even if you don't finish it, and it'll make studying for the final test easier because you'll have less to do this week. Right. But that's the pacing and syllabus. That's mainly what I talk about in these videos. There's a student resources up here at the top, course information. If you open that, pretty much there's going to be, I actually have to replace this. I realize now that this is not for us. We are doing WebAssign, so I'm gonna have to get rid of this. But outside of that, there's how to get onto the Learning Commons and how to get onto virtual TCC, just a whole bunch of links, student resources. This pretty much is probably mostly a dead link now because this was more important at the start of the pandemic. What else is up here? If you click on Zoom, that'll take you to the page where we have all of the Zoom meetings set up, and you can just join from here. So you don't have to memorize or go to the other link. But also the Zoom live meetings, if you click on this one, it has that link with the meeting ID and password in it as well. And kind of overwhelming, but all the dates of our meetings. Right. And then the office hours aren't in Zoom because it's not just for this class. So if you want to find the link to student office hours, it's in the syllabus, but you can also find it here. Here's the link. Here's the meeting ID and password. So you're going to make sure you do this introduction quiz. If you click on it, you're just allowed to take the quiz, and you'll see the allowed attempts are 3, and pretty much everything is true, false, and you just go through and answer the questions. Now, maybe if you don't feel like it can't specifically cover a question well enough in this video and you get it wrong, just remember that you can do it again, and it should only take you a couple minutes to run through the whole thing, so it's not going to be a time waste. And then another thing, I can't access anything on WebAssign, but if you try to enter any WebAssign assignments, so this one would be one, and if I click on it, it just says it's locked until then because that's when the class starts, so I can't show you what pops up yet. Now, there's pretty much always a question, what calculator am I allowed to use? Well, when you're not working on tests, homework, you can use anything you want. I would recommend you use what you're going to use on the test. You don't need a graphing calculator for this course, but I think graphing calculators are very helpful. In a lot of the lecture videos, when I use a graphing calculator, I use Desmos, and you're perfectly allowed to use that. And you just go to desmos.com. So let's go ahead and go to desmos.com. And then all you do is you click on this graphing calculator, and you can kind of mess with it. And I do it pretty much in every lectures, and I talk about how you do stuff, but you just type in equations y equals x, and it'll graph that line, and it'll point out a lot of stuff for you. But you're allowed to use this on a test. I do also use Wolfram Alpha when I go through the lectures because it's easiest calculator to put on my screen and show you how to use, or just do some calculations. But it's mainly arithmetic calculations. You're not allowed to use that because it can show you the work, it can show you the steps. So you cannot use that. Any other online calculator besides Desmos is not permitted. Now, as far as handheld calculators go, a TI-30 is plenty good. If you have a TI-83 or 84, they're graphing calculators, but they can do everything a scientific calculator can do. That's also good as well. All right, but pretty much can't use your phone as a calculator, can't use any other online calculators, and TI-89s and 92s can do work for you as well, so you can't use those. All right, if you ever forget about how the practice test bonuses work, they'll be right here, but at this point I don't have them all made, so you don't see any. Same thing with the tests. As the tests pop up and I get them made, you'll be able to enter them right here. And at this point I don't have them made, so they're not there yet. If you watch the video I have in the HonorLock FAQs, it'll tell you exactly how to get onto HonorLock and how it's going to work, and then how to submit test work. When it comes around to it, you can click on this and it'll show you how to submit your test work, because you do have to upload it as a PDF. All right, now the only other thing, if I scroll through here, Unit 1, Unit 2, Unit 3, it's going to look exactly the same. The sections that I have already made up with the videos and the notes and everything, you'll see this section blank content. At this point, I have it made, I guess I have it made through this section because there's nothing else there. Okay, but what I want to go ahead and mention is that whatever I'm not done with, or whatever is not there yet, it'll be up well in advance for when it's due. All right, so one thing I want to go ahead and show you is just what's in each section. So every section, you have your content. This is the first one, section 2.2. If you click on it, there will be blank lecture notes. You can open them up by clicking on it, or download it with the little down arrow there. And by blank, I might have some stuff drawn in that I already have drawn in going into the lecture, but it's pretty blank. There's not much to it besides really setting up the problems. Now, if I go back and I show you, go to the content and I show you the filled out notes, I don't typically recommend looking at these unless if you've already gone through the lecture, because it can be very overwhelming in some sections. I'll highlight things, I'll write in comments, talk about what stuff means. I'll have a whole bunch of stuff drawn in. And this section, the first section, isn't overwhelming as far as algebra and stuff goes, but in general, I would recommend not looking at this until you've watched the lecture videos. Right, I guess I can minimize the preview, that makes that easier. And then below here, I'll have the lecture videos. The first section is the only one with one video, but it's kind of long. I realized afterwards I didn't want videos to be way too long. So if I go back to home and I show you a different section, section 2.3, this one has 4 parts to it. The videos aren't nearly as long. I try to stick to them being around 20 minutes long. Like I said, you can expect about 3 videos per section because each video is about 20 minutes and there's roughly an hour per section. And I kind of mentioned here, this is the only one I think in the whole course, but part 4 here is just a bonus. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. It's not necessary. But the point is every section has all this stuff. And what I recommend and what I was talking about before is kind of open up the lecture video. If you want to take the notes based on printing some things out from the notes to really follow along like that, you can definitely do that. But what I recommend is either just watching one video at a time since they're about 20 minutes, or watching one problem from one video at a time, and then going to the homework. Once again, it's not going to open up yet because I can't get in there. It's not May 6th yet. But once you do that, open up, that'll open up straight to the assignment once you're good onto on WebAssign, and then just kind of work it alongside. I do not recommend watching all the videos like you have to when you're sitting in class, watching a hour and a half lecture, writing down all the notes, and then starting. The advantage is you can start and go as you want. And kind of another nice thing about embedding the videos on YouTube is they have that feature where you can speed up and slow down a video. And if you're really starting to get something, speed it up. I watch videos on YouTube all the time, and sometimes I just watching one thing, okay, I get it, or get to the point. I don't want to listen to this anymore, and I can just speed it up and get to there quicker. But overall, that's the introduction. As far as anything else on Canvas, most of it's pretty straightforward. You're really never going to have to use any of the Honor Lock or quizzes tabs. The Zoom tab I showed you was for. The syllabus tab, some students like it because you can see all the assignments in order of how they're due. And also the syllabus and pacing are here. And also it shows you the way the grades are made up, which can help you. But overall, the only other thing inside here, there's Smart Thinking Online Tutoring, which is pretty much the nighttime and weekend virtual learning commons. I don't really recommend using it unless if you want to access the learning commons at night or on weekends. You should use the learning commons otherwise. Or me, you can email me. I'm just not available at nights or weekends. And then the last thing is the grades. Pretty much what exactly is going to be going on is it's a visualization of your grades. And when you work on something, you'll get some points and it'll calculate it. You can mess around with the grades, which is pretty cool. I know a lot of students probably know this, some of you don't, but at the end of the semester when it approaches, you can do a what if score. So if you're going into the last test with like a 79 and you want to know, what do I need to get an 80? So I get a B in the class. Then you can just type in what if scores and figure it out. But that's pretty much it. So again, I hope that everyone watches this just because it is a good rundown, and it's pretty much what I'm going to go through when we go through class the first day, but I do have to show you the WebAssign when that becomes available. But if you do watch this and you have any questions, feel free to ask and I'll be happy to answer.